soft breath. Once upon a winter night, I followed a long white road. A village slept. The world held its breath. A cabin waited at the edge. The snow whispered. A bell watched from the hill. Something listened in the trees. And somewhere, a stain waited in the snow. The night was very cold. Snow lay thick on the ground. The moon was thin and pale. It made the snow shine like glass. The trees stood close and bare. Their branches looked like fingers. They reached out in the dark night. A small cabin sat alone. It sat at the edge of a quiet village near Christmas. No lights burned inside. The road to the cabin was empty. Footprints had almost disappeared in the new snow that fell without a sound. The snow made a soft, lonely crunch under his boots. The wind moved through the trees. It made them moan and creak. He heard wolves far away in the deep woods. They howled into the dark, a sound that felt older than the trees themselves. He wrapped his coat tight around his body. The cold bit at his cheeks. He could see his breath like smoke in the pale moonlight, a small ghost that went before him. He stopped near the front door. He saw something red on the snow. It made a sharp, dark line near the wooden step. He crouched down slowly. His gloved fingers touched the cold, crisp snow. The red was dark, almost black. It smelled of iron and something else, something sweet. It was blood. It had sunk into the snow like a deep stain on white cloth. He looked up at the cabin again. The window was cracked. A single candle burned low inside. Its light flickered and leaned, casting long, nervous shadows. The room was small and plain. The air inside was colder than the night. A table was broken, one leg snapped clean off. A chair lay on its side, its back splintered. A child's sled leaned in the corner. Dark, wet marks stained its wooden slats. The floorboards had wide cracks between them. Candle wax had spilled like frozen rivers on the rough wood. The light from the single candle was low and weak. Shadows pooled in the corners of the small room. They seemed deeper than the dark outside, full of secrets. He walked inside with careful, quiet steps. Each step made the old wood groan under his weight. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and old, damp cloth. He turned and looked at a small tree in the corner. It was not a bright Christmas tree. It had only a few simple ornaments. One ornament, a small wooden bird, hung low on a branch. It was wet and red. Dried blood crusted its carved wing. It shone dull and sticky in the wavering candlelight. He touched it with the tip of his glove. It left a dark smear on the leather. He found more marks on the floor. Tiny drops of blood led away from the front door. They made a thin, broken line across the planks. The drops ended at a heavy wool blanket on the floor. The blanket was torn. Its stitches lay open like a ragged mouth. Inside the blanket, a shape had moved once. Now, it lay terribly still. The face was turned down into the folds of the wool. He could not bring himself to look for long. He knew what he would see. He had to check every room. He had to check every room. Each small space held its own quiet terror. A child's worn sock lay by the cold iron stove. A small handmade sled had deep scratch marks along its runners. A door at the back of the cabin was left ajar. It showed the pale moonlight on a path that had gone white and empty. The window in that room was broken. The glass had sharp, jagged teeth. Outside, the forest looked darker and closer than before. Something moved quickly through the trees. He saw a shape cross the silver moonlight. It was gone before he could make a sound. He went back to the main room. The candle on the table had burned lower now. Its light danced and jumped on the low ceiling. Shadows slid along the heavy wooden beams. In one corner, a tall shadow stood like a man. He thought it was just a coat hanging on a peg. Then it moved in a way a coat could not. It bent a little at the wrong angle, a slow, unnatural lean. He took a hesitant step closer. The shadow seemed to notice him and turn. He saw then that the coat was empty. He felt eyes on his back. A cold prickle ran up his spine. He spun around, expecting to see someone standing there. No one was there. The cold of the room filled the space with a low humming noise. The floor creaked above him in the small loft. A bell rang once in the distance. The bell sounded thin and old, like cracked iron. It did not come from the village church. It seemed to come from the deep, dark woods. The sound made his skin crawl and his blood run cold. Outside, the wind pushed against the trees hard. The snow swirled in the air like small, frantic ghosts. From the broken window, he saw a small print in the fresh snow. It was a child's footprint. It came close to the house, and then it just stopped. It did not go away. There were no other tracks around it. Small red drops colored the snow near the tiny print. He took one small oil lamp from a hook and walked back outside. The snow had a soft, ethereal glow under the pale moon. The forest felt alive and waiting, a silent witness. He moved the lamp slowly in wide circles. The yellow light found old tracks that led away from the cabin. The tracks were not like a man's. They dragged at one side. They were uneven and strange. They cut the snow in a way that was wrong. The tracks led toward a small, snow-covered hill. On the hill, a single bell hung from an old twisted branch. The bell had a red ribbon tied to it. The ribbon was dry and dark with old blood. He felt the wind shift. It made a whisper that sounded almost like words. "Stay." The voice was small and very close. He stopped moving. His breath froze in the air before him. He heard a soft scrape in the snow nearby. Something moved toward him in the dark between the trees. He raised the lamp fast, his hand shaking. For a moment, the light found a small, pale face. The face's eyes were like black, empty stones. It smiled, too many teeth. Then it vanished back into the deep woods. He ran back to the cabin. He slammed the heavy door shut behind him. The whole house shook with the impact. The candle on the table blew out. Darkness came fast and thick, a heavy blanket over the room. In the dark, the whispers grew louder, a chorus of small, sad sounds. They carried names on the air. They called his name in low, pleading tones. He could not tell where they came from. Inside the back room, the child's sled lay broken in two. The wood was splintered, with deep cuts gouged into it. The wool blanket on the floor had moved. The ripped stitches now showed a small, pale hand. The hand was torn and lifeless. The blood on it was fresh. He almost fell. He wanted to run. He wanted to scream. He wanted to leave this terrible place behind. His legs would not follow his commands. They were frozen to the spot. The air was thick and hard to breathe. He heard the wind turn to a sound like people crying, a high, mournful wail. The air in the room was thick with cold. He felt a press of cold on the back of his neck. Was it fingers? Something then touched his shoulder, a light but firm pressure. He spun around, his heart pounding in his throat. No one stood there. A shadow slid between the walls in the corner of his eye. It had no head. It slid across the wood like black oil. The candle on the table relit suddenly, all by itself. The flame was a strange, cold blue. In its eerie light, he saw marks on the wall he hadn't seen before. Names were carved into the wood. Some were old and faded, others were new and sharp. Names of people who had lived here. Names that ended with no one left to say them. He knew then that the cabin was not just empty. It had been a home before. It had also been a place of great loss. The snow outside kept its secrets safe. The tall trees kept their silent watch. The wind carried the small, lost voices. The man felt small and hollow, an intruder in a long, sad story. He took one last, desperate look around the main room. He saw the child's sled again. Its pull rope was tied to a rusty nail on the wall. The rope had small, tight knots in it like tiny, clenched teeth. He reached out and untied the rope slowly. He felt its pull, a slight tug like a small hand wanting to be held. The house seemed to breathe in, a long, slow inhale. The corners of the room filled with quiet, shifting shapes. He stepped back. The floor seemed to move under his feet, a low tremor from deep within the earth. A soft bell rang, very close by. He could not tell if it came from outside or from the very air in the room. The bell sounded like a dry, hollow laugh. He felt a cold head press against the side of his neck. He turned with all the strength he had left. Cold air hit him like a whip across the face. He fell backward, his head striking the floor. The candle went out again. The darkness took every small thing. It wrapped around him like a thick, cold netting, pulling him down into silence and fear. When he woke, the snow lay heavy and still outside. The sun had not yet come. He found himself sitting on the front step, the taste of metal and fear in his mouth. The cabin door stood wide open behind him. The house looked calm and empty in the pre-dawn light. The broken window showed only the white, silent woods. No tracks led away from the door. The blood in the snow was faint and thin, almost gone. The little sled lay in the corner as if it had never moved at all. He left the cabin. He did not look back. He walked back along the long white road. The village slept behind its line of dark trees. No one came out to meet him. He spoke to no one of what he had seen. He kept the sound of the bell locked inside his head. He tried to tell the story once. People listened with polite faces and then looked away. Some said the bells in the old church kept ringing on their own each night. Some said the lights in the houses near the woods blinked and went out without reason. They say the cabin in Blackwood Hollow still stands. They say the snow there keeps its stains, even in the summer. They say at night, the wind sings the names it remembers from the walls. They say a small, lonely bell rings in the distance on cold winter nights. If you go near that place, you will hear the soft crunch of snow under your feet. If you listen very close, you may hear the sound of small steps that stop right at the door. You may feel a cold breath on your neck and think it is only the wind. But the story does not end there. The man who left the cabin was never the same. He would sit by his window and watch the snow fall. He never went near the woods again. He heard the bell in his dreams. He saw the small, pale face in every shadow. The cold from that night stayed with him. It settled deep in his bones. He knew the cabin was not just a place. It was a hunger. It was a memory that walked. It was a memory that breathed. It was a memory that waited for the snow to fall. The villagers learned to avoid the path to Blackwood Hollow. They told their children stories to keep them away. Stories of a man who vanished on Christmas night, leaving only blood in the snow. They did not speak of the whispers. They did not speak of the bell. They did not want to give the story power. But some things do not need to be spoken of to be real. Some things just wait. They wait for someone to get lost. They wait for someone to be curious. On cold nights, when the moon is thin and the world is white, the cabin seems to call out. It is a quiet call, a pull on the heart. It promises warmth from the cold. It promises shelter from the wind. But the fire inside is not made of wood. The shelter it offers is not made of walls. It is a shelter made of silence and forgetting. It is a warmth that drains the life from you, slow and quiet, until you are just another whisper in the walls, another name carved in the dark. I know this because I was that man. I walked that road. I saw the blood in the snow. I heard the bell on the hill. I felt the cold breath on my neck.